Oceangate shouldn't have been doing what it was doing. I think that's pretty clear. I wish I had been more vocal about that, but
You're remembered for the rules you break. And, I've broken some rules to make this.
People all over the world were shocked and filled with questions when the Oceangate submarine went missing during its deep visit to the Titanic. However, at last, scientists are speaking up, and what they have to say is really scary. Many people have failed to see the warnings, signs, and important issues. This might not have been just a sad accident. It could have been something that was going to happen all along. So, what did the experts really know? And why didn't anyone speak up before things went wrong? The truth is now coming out, and it's more upsetting than anyone ever expected. Join us in this video as we discuss the details. The terrifying new truth about Oceangate Submarine, the Titan submersible, which went underwater to visit the Titanic shipwreck at the bottom of the ocean, sadly broke apart deep under the sea on June 18, 2023. When it happened, it all took place very quickly, almost in the blink of an eye. Everyone who was inside the Titan when it happened, 5 people in total, died right away. There was no time for anyone to react, and there was no chance for survival. It was a complete and sudden disaster. Recently, a new sound recording has come to light. This audio came from a very special underwater microphone that was placed in the ocean. The microphone is called a hydrophone, and it was located not too far from where the Titanic lies underwater, about 900 meters away. The sound that was recorded on that day is now believed to be the exact moment when the Titan's hull broke under the heavy pressure of the deep sea. The recording lasts for about 23 seconds. At first, there were just small, soft ocean sounds, nothing strange or loud. But then, all of a sudden, there's a sharp, loud noise. It's short, but it's strong. Experts believe this noise was the sound of the sub's hull collapsing all at once. It wasn't slow. It didn't happen in parts. It just happened all at once. The Titan was not built like other deep-sea submarines. It was made by a company called Oceangate. They used materials and building methods that weren't common. The body of the sub, the part that keeps people safe from the pressure of the water, was made from something called carbon fiber. This material is very light and strong, but it hasn't been used much for very deep dives like this one. The front and back of the sub were made from titanium, which is a very strong metal. Putting carbon fiber and titanium together like that created questions and concerns. Some engineers warned that, over time, the carbon fiber could start to wear down or become weaker without people even knowing. Furthermore, even a slight vulnerability can be fatal in an environment as hazardous and deep as the ocean floor. Deep-sea vehicles are typically subject to inspection and approval by specialized safety groups. These teams ensure that submersibles are safe to use. To ensure that everything is sturdy and constructed correctly, they test and inspect every component. However, Oceangate chose not to receive this type of endorsement. Stockton Rush, the CEO of the company, thought that these regulations hindered innovation and advancement. He thought his team could test things in their own way. But that meant that no outside experts had looked at the Titan closely to make sure it was truly safe. Back in 2018, one person who worked for Oceangate, named David Lockridge, said he was worried about the sub's safety. He had been checking the sub carefully and found some problems. He said that the carbon fiber looked like it had some small issues, and that the sub didn't have a good system for checking tiny cracks while underwater. Instead of listening to him, Oceangate let him go and took him to court. This shows how the company sometimes didn't welcome people pointing out problems. Other engineers and deep-sea experts from outside the company also spoke up. They said using carbon fiber again and again in deep dives could make it slowly weaker. Even if nothing looked wrong on the outside, the inside might be damaged from the pressure. The Titan had already gone on over 20 dives before the final one. That means the pressure might have slowly worn down the body of the sub, little by little, until it couldn't take it anymore. Right before the last trip, people working around the Titan noticed that the sub was making strange noises. There were little popping and cracking sounds. In deep-sea vehicles, sounds like that can be a sign of stress or damage. But still, the sub was sent down. Stockton Rush led the dive himself. With him were 4 others: Hamish Harding, a businessman from the UK, Paul-Henri Nargeolet, a French expert on the Titanic, and Shahzada Dawood, along with his teenage son Suleiman, both from Pakistan. The dive started like usual, but about 1 hour and 45 minutes after going down, the Titan stopped sending messages back to the ship on the surface, which was called the Polar Prince. At that same time, secret military underwater listening devices picked up a loud, sharp sound. Later, experts said that sound was the Titan breaking apart under pressure. Once the Titan was lost, and the truth started to come out, the question remained: how could such a tragic failure have been allowed to happen in the first place? Let's learn more. Investigations and warnings ignored. Even though the military already had a good idea of what had happened, the search for the sub went on for 4 more days. Boats and planes from different countries looked across the ocean to find it. News channels around the world followed the story. People were hoping for a rescue. But eventually, small pieces of the Titan were found on the ocean floor. They were scattered not far from where the Titanic sits. The pieces confirmed what many already feared. The Titan had completely broken apart. When those broken parts were brought up and studied, experts saw that the front part of the sub, the round dome, was crushed in by the weight of the ocean. The damage showed that the collapse started there and then spread through the rest of the body. Tests on the materials showed that the carbon fiber had bent and broken in ways that fit with a pressure collapse. It seems like the dive pushed the sub to its very limits, and the stress from earlier dives had likely made it weaker without anyone knowing. Looking deeper, it became clear that Oceangate's way of doing things may have played a big role in what happened. The company's emails, talks with investors, and public interviews all showed a strong desire to move fast and be different. The CEO often said safety rules got in the way of progress. He didn't want to follow the normal path that other sub-builders did. In fact, some outside experts were asked to help Oceangate in the past, but they walked away because they didn't feel the company was serious enough about safety. There were also questions about how the Titan was operated. The people inside used a video game controller to move the sub around. This controller wasn't built for the ocean, it was made for home use and connected by Bluetooth. Some people said it wasn't smart to use something like that in such a dangerous place. On top of that, the sub didn't have backup systems for everything. It didn't have a strong escape system. So if anything went wrong with the hull, the people inside wouldn't be able to get out or be saved in time. Before the last dive, Oceangate had been selling tickets to go to the Titan. Each person paid around $250,000 for the trip. The company made videos and ads that said the Titan was a new and exciting way to explore the deep sea. But the things they didn't say were just as important. Inside reports now show that the sub had problems before. There were times when the power failed or the motors didn't work right, but these issues were fixed quietly, and no one outside the company was told in detail. After the disaster, many different government groups started looking into what went wrong. The U.S. Coast Guard, the National Transportation Safety Board, and others from Canada all worked together to find out the full truth. Oceangate stopped running trips, and their work came to a halt. Families of the people who died began asking hard questions. Did Oceangate tell them everything they needed to know before the trip? Were the risks clearly explained? Did the passengers really understand what could happen? That new underwater sound recording, captured by NOAA's equipment, confirmed what many already believed. The sub didn't break slowly. It wasn't something that happened over time while the crew suffered. It was instant, fast, one sharp break. But even with that new sound, there are still many things people don't fully know. Experts are still trying to figure out exactly which part of the sub gave out first, and why. The search for answers is still going. People want to know not just how the sub broke, but why it was ever allowed to dive in the first place. The choices made by the company, the design of the sub, and the lack of checks and testing all seem to be pieces of the bigger puzzle. This wasn't just an accident under the sea. It was the result of many decisions, some made with risk, and some made without enough care. What exactly happened on that tragic day when the Titan vanished beneath the waves? And how did the world respond to such a sudden and chilling disappearance? Let's find out. The disappearance of the Titan and the search efforts. The missing Titan was not like a regular boat, or even like a normal submarine. It was a very small and unusual kind of deep-sea vehicle. It had enough oxygen to last about 96 hours, which is about 4 days, give or take. That meant if something went wrong, they would have about 4 days' worth of air to breathe inside before the supply ran out. After it went missing, a very large and very fast search began. People from the United States and Canada came together, including both countries' coast guards, to try and find the Titan and save the people inside. They used ships, aircraft, underwater robots, and many kinds of equipment to look for it. They searched for days, hoping to find it in time. But on June 22nd, 4 days after it vanished, some wreckage was found on the ocean floor. That debris came from the Titan. Experts said the sub had suffered what they called a catastrophic implosion. That meant the pressure from the deep ocean crushed the sub instantly. The Oceangate Company is a private one, meaning it's not owned by the public or the government. Its main office is in Everett, Washington, which is in the United States. The company's goal was to let people go deep into the ocean, not just scientists, but also regular folks who could afford to pay. They wanted to make underwater travel and deep exploration more open to the public. The company was started in the year 2009 by two men, Stockton Rush and Guillermo Sunline. Stockton Rush had big dreams from a young age. At first, he wanted to become an astronaut and go into space. But after a while, he turned his interest toward the opposite direction, not up into the sky, but down into the sea. He became very focused on exploring the ocean instead. Stockton Rush was also married to a woman named Wendy Rush. She was related to a couple named Isidore and Ida Strauss, who were both passengers on the original Titanic ship and sadly died when it sank. While the world mourned the tragic loss and searched for answers, what deeper truths began to surface about the people behind the Titan and the warnings that were ignored? Let's take a closer look. Design choices, materials, and rising concerns. Going deep into the ocean is not an easy thing to do. There are many big and dangerous challenges. One of the biggest problems is the heavy pressure of the water. The deeper you go, the more pressure is around you. The pressure increases by about 14.7 pounds per square inch for every 10 meters of depth. That means, for every 10 meters you go down, the pressure gets stronger and stronger. The Titanic wreck is about 12,500 feet under the surface of the ocean, which is around 3,800 meters. At that great depth, the pressure is about 376 times the pressure we feel at sea level. That's almost 800,000 pounds of pressure for every square foot. It's more pressure than the strongest buildings on land could ever hold. The Titan submersible was made to handle a depth of about 4,000 meters. This means it should have been able to go slightly deeper than where the Titanic lies. For comparison, the famous film director James Cameron, who who also explores the deep sea, used a special vessel called the Deep Sea Challenger to go even deeper, about 11,000 meters. That's much, much deeper than where the Titanic is. The Titan, however, was very different from most deep-sea vessels. One strange thing about it was that the hatch, which is the door the passengers enter through, was bolted shut from the outside. It was held in place by 17 or 18 tons strong bolts. That meant once the passengers were inside, they could not get out unless someone opened it from the outside after they came back up. Another odd thing about the Titan is that it did not have its own GPS system or an emergency signal beacon. It had to rely completely on the surface ship to tell it where to go. If contact was lost, it could not guide itself. Oceangate made a decision that many people now find very surprising. They chose not to get the Titan certified by any official safety group or agency. In the year 2019, they posted on their blog and explained why. They said that if you want to build something new and push limits, you sometimes have to step outside the usual rules. They believed that being too focused on safety rules might slow down innovation. This idea was very risky. A journalist named David Pogue, who went on the Titan in 2022, said that during his dive, they lost contact with the surface ship for several hours. After the sub disappeared in 2023, a lot of people found this very troubling. Before they built the Titan, Oceangate had already worked on other underwater vessels. In 2012, they had a sub called Antipodes. Then, they made another one called Cyclops 1, which could dive down to about 500 meters. That's not very deep compared to the Titan. The Titan was meant to be their biggest and most advanced sub yet. It was made from special materials, including carbon fiber and titanium. These two materials are both strong in their own ways. Titanium is a metal that's very good at handling pressure and is used in many other deep-sea vehicles. Carbon fiber, however, is more often used in cars and planes. It is strong, but does not behave the same way as metal when under repeated pressure. Using carbon fiber in deep-sea diving is not very common. The Titan's carbon fiber hull was built in 2017 by a company called Spencer Composites. That same company once built the pressure hull for another famous deep-sea vehicle called the Deep Flight Challenger. The Deep Flight Challenger was not built by Oceangate, but it also had a carbon fiber design. However, that sub was only supposed to dive once, not over and over again. One of the problems with carbon fiber is that it can get weaker over time, especially when it's used again and again in very high-pressure places like the deep sea. Metals like titanium can usually handle many dives because they are more stable under pressure. But carbon fiber can start to break down without much warning. This makes it a risky material for something that's supposed to go to extreme depths again and again. Oceangate had talked with big names like Boeing and the University of Washington when they were first designing the Titan. They tried to make something new and bold, but many experts now believe that their design choices, especially the use of carbon fiber, may have led to the disaster. After all the shock, the headlines, and the search for answers, one heartbreaking question remained. What really happened to the bodies of those 5 people inside the Titan? Let's delve deeper. Unanswered questions and hidden truths about the mystery of the Titan submersible remains after the Oceangate Titan submersible tragedy. Many people online started asking one main question: what happened to the bodies of the 5 people who were inside? As videos and pictures began spreading around the internet, people became more curious and some even more worried. They wanted to know what happened to the people who had been on board, not just how the submarine vanished or was destroyed. It was a complex question with no simple answers. The 5 individuals who perished in the Titan were more than just well-known figures. They were actual individuals with families, aspirations, and life stories. When the Titan lost contact and the news broke, hope stayed alive for days. People around the world followed every update, hoping maybe the sub would be found in time. But when pieces of the Titan were found, and the Coast Guard said the sub had suffered a catastrophic implosion, everything changed. It meant the sub didn't just sink, it collapsed in on itself, likely in just a split second. Experts said this would have happened with so much force and speed that the passengers wouldn't have felt pain. They would have died instantly. But that explanation didn't stop the questions. What about the bodies? Could they be found? Were they still inside the wreckage? Or had the powerful ocean pressure destroyed everything? Deep-sea experts explained that the area where the Titan was last known to be is extremely harsh. The water pressure is so strong at that depth that anything not made to survive it gets crushed right away. Some scientists said that the bodies were likely turned into organic dust in just seconds, too fast and too complete for remains to be recovered. This was hard for many people to hear, especially the families. They had already lost loved ones. Now they also had to accept that they might never get to bury them or say goodbye in a traditional way. It brought a kind of grief that felt even more heavy, because it didn't just mean loss, it meant no closure. Some family members chose not to speak much about it. Others shared their sadness publicly, asking for prayers and privacy. At the same time, some folks online weren't satisfied with the scientific answers. A few started wondering if maybe something else happened. They asked, was the story really what we were told? Could the sub have broken apart later than the experts said? Could parts of the bodies still be inside the wreckage? Or had something strange or unexpected happened that we didn't know about yet? The Coast Guard said that pieces of the sub were brought back to land and would be studied closely. They wanted to understand how the sub failed and what could be learned from it. But they didn't say much about what, if anything, was found inside. That silence made people talk even more. The lack of details only made the mystery grow. Oceangate, the company behind the dive, also didn't say much. They shared some words of sadness, but they didn't talk about what they knew or didn't know about the remains. This made the public ask more questions. Why was it so quiet? Was there something they didn't want to say? Were the pictures and data too awful to share? What's clear is that this tragedy has left many people with deep, painful questions. Some are scientific, some are emotional, and some are just human. People want to understand. They want to feel like there's a reason behind what happened. But when it comes to the fate of the bodies, the truth might simply be that the ocean took them in a way that left nothing behind. Which major safety issues and choices influenced the Titan submersible's outcome? Stay tuned for more. The rise and fall of the Titan submersible. The Titan submersible was shown to the public as a test vessel working under very tough conditions, including pressures of 6,000 psi. At first, people mostly focused on Oceangate CEO Stockton Rush, showing the vessel's Logitech F7i and controller, which was clearly seen in promotional videos. Still, a wrongful death lawsuit by the family of victim Paul-Henri Narjolet mentioned the controller. All passengers signed long waivers agreeing to the risks of death, including a part saying the vessel could fail and cause death. But legal experts say if gross carelessness is proved, the waiver might not protect the company. Oceangate was warned many times about safety problems, and the signed papers might not help in court. The company used parts they saved from earlier in a big repair in 2021 after the first hull was damaged. CEO Rush pushed to put these saved parts on the new frame, even though normal rules stop using damaged parts, especially where pressure is high. Battery problems and old damage also caused worries. In 2018, deep-sea expert Rob McCallum sent many warnings to Stockton Rush about Titan's safety. McCallum said the vessel was like a homemade small plane, not a certified sub. He warned the carbon fiber hull, no outside testing, and breaking from usual rules made Titan unsafe. Rush ignored the warnings, said they were wrong and personal attacks. He threatened McCallum with court and didn't use the safety ideas, saying tests would stop new ideas. Despite this, Oceangate kept doing rough tests and moving forward. Oceangate asked a certification group in 2019 for Titan's approval but was refused. Instead of trying other groups, the company made its own way to classify the sub, based on one-dive checks by some experts. Members of the Marine Technology Society also warned Oceangate to follow rules. They were ignored. Boeing engineer who worked with Rush briefly warned of a big chance of failure. That warning was ignored too. The sub's carbon fiber hull caused serious doubts with engineers. Rush said it was like planes, where carbon fiber works under pressure inside, but deep oceans push from outside, and carbon fiber isn't good for that. In 2022, a loud noise was heard during going up, later found to be layers of the carbon fiber coming apart. The sub still was used the next year. Titan's real-time monitoring (RTM) system was meant to find problems in the hull and tell the crew to go up. But experts said RTM could only warn seconds or milliseconds before a crash. U.S. Navy intelligence tracked a big crash near the Titanic wreck at the time Titan went missing. In 2024, new videos showed Wendy Rush, Stockton Rush's widow, reacting to a sound while watching the dive from the surface. This sound matched when the sub broke. Pieces were later found about 1,600 feet from the Titanic's front. While the world mourned the loss, one more question lingered. What did the experts think? And why had no one stopped this before it was too late? Let's learn more. James Cameron breaks silence on Titan sub tragedy. James Cameron spoke about the Titan sub disaster 1 year later. He said he figured out almost right away that the sub had exploded. He believed this because the sub stopped sending signals and also lost its direction system at the same time. To him, losing both things at once meant something really bad had happened. He shared that he wrote the words "confirmed implosion" in his notebook at 9:25 a.m. on the same day the U.S. Navy picked up the sound of the sub breaking apart. The Navy had heard the noise on Sunday, the same day the sub went silent, and figured out where it happened within about 100 meters. Cameron was very critical of how Oceangate and its boss, Stockton Rush, built the sub. He said using a carbon fiber body was a huge mistake, and that it should never have been used for diving that deep. According to Cameron, carbon fiber can get weaker over time when it's pushed and squeezed by water pressure over and over again. He explained that this material starts to break apart from the inside. He also said that mixing carbon fiber with metal parts caused more problems. The two materials react differently to pressure and heat, which can make the pieces separate and wear out. He said Rush had been warned many times by experts, but still didn't listen. Cameron made it clear that people who work with deep-sea vehicles always follow strict safety rules. These rules have been around for many years and were created after learning from past mistakes. They help keep everyone safe. He said the reason this kind of accident hadn't happened before is because others followed those safety rules closely. He blamed Oceangate for ignoring them. Cameron said Rush had a habit of thinking that rules should be broken to do new things. He believed that kind of thinking does not belong in deep-sea work. Cameron explained that building things to go deep under the sea is very different from building things that fly. In the air, things are pulled apart by tension. But deep in the ocean, everything gets squeezed hard by pressure. He believed Rush's training in flying didn't prepare him for how the ocean works. He said that taking these big risks ended in the loss of lives. Cameron also pointed out that the Titan sub was never checked or approved by official safety groups. He said that any real ocean program would never allow that. He compared it to building a homemade plane and charging people to fly in it without any testing. He believed the sub broke apart deep underwater because it had been damaged from too many past trips. Over time, tiny flaws in the body likely built up and finally caused it to collapse on that last dive. He also said that many people in the deep-sea field didn't trust Oceangate or Rush even before the accident. Some experts had already warned them not to use carbon fiber. Cameron shared that he knew people who gave Rush clear warnings. He also said some engineers left the company because they felt it wasn't safe. To the people who knew about this kind of work, the accident didn't come as a surprise. Cameron said he felt upset that this all could have been stopped. What do you think about the Titan submarine tragedy? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video shown on your screen to catch up on your favorite celebrity stories. See you there.